Leandra. Hello, all. Good to see you here, and some folks from Brazil. As my mom is here, and some friends. I'm really glad to share my work, my dissertation work today with you. Let's see if you can see my screen. Okay. All right. So I will start my time here. So hello again. Thank you so much for being here. And today I present my dissertation work, which I recently defended 2 weeks ago. And the title, which Leandra read for us, is a little long. And for me, it translates the complexity of this topic. So that's why I have this long title. Sorry. Okay. So for today's Tropilunch, I decided to bring an overview of my work instead of going in details to present my core dissertation chapters. However, while giving this overview, I will try to bring more information about some of my research methods, and because I want to share my approach to communicate my research to stakeholders, engage research participants, and provide reflection on community timber management while collect data with diverse actors. So going direct to the point, as we know, local communities depend on forest resources for many reasons. For instance, wild game to secure protein, non-timber forest products for food security and healthcare, and commercial forest goods to generate income. Timber is also part of this multiple purpose use of forests. In rural areas, timber is crucial for housing, firewood, furniture, and local transportation. For some communities, timber is also a crucial economic activity that generates income for families and provides improvements for to the whole community. This also applies to sustainable use protect areas, wherein communities depend on this diverse use of forest resources to keep their local livelihoods, culture, and guarantee their well-being. In the past 3 decades, over 100 million hectares of protected areas were created in Brazil, bringing special attention to situations wherein local communities live within these areas and manage its natural resources. In Brazil, we call these areas as sustainable use protected areas. In 2011, the governmental agency in charge of federal protected areas, ICMBio, established a norm outlining timber management rights to local communities in some sustainable use protected areas. This norm created a collaborative management situation among ICMBio, local communities, and other actors. I approach collaborative management, or also named co-management, has a process of negotiation among multiple actors to define responsibilities, rights, and benefits over natural resource. Thus, in co-management systems, government, local communities, and other actors have to negotiate and decide together how to manage natural resources, where to manage it, and how. What, how, and where. In this context, when I was a project coordinator in this Brazilian non-profit organization, Tropical Forest Institute, or EFT, I worked in several locations wherein local communities were managing forests. In that time, I started to notice an increase of communities trying to approve their timber projects with ICMBio. More than that, I observed that these communities were managing timber resources in very different ways, even under the same land tenure, forest laws, and similar historical process of land use. Then I started to question why these local communities were trying to legalize timber management in sustainable use protect areas, in what operational conditions, and how these people were interacting with external actors, for instance, the government and timber companies. These questions met with some inquiry of TCD fellows, as we can see here. And together with TCD seed money, we organized in 2017 a workshop to explore differences in community timber management in Brazilian Amazonian protected areas, specifically in extractive reserves, wherein I observed an increase of timber projects being approved in the past 5 years. You can get more information about this workshop in a previous Tropilunch, and the link is here. I can share later in the chat. And soon, from an upcoming publication organized by Embrapa, one of our Brazilian partners in the organization of this event. So with all this, my previous experience working in the NGO, the workshop, and all the brainstorms with colleagues from TCD community, I ended up comparing 7 community timber projects approved under ICMBio norm. These projects were located in 3 sustainable use protect areas, specifically extractive reserves Chico Mendes in Acre State, Ituxi in Amazonas State, and Verde para Sempre in Pará State. To compare these cases, I organized my dissertation in 4 main chapters. In the first chapter, I explored variations in community timber co-management. Then I investigated perceptions of internal and external actors to get an idea about what was working well or not. Since co-management is about negotiation, I also studied decision-making process and power dynamics in decision-making. Still on the debate about power, I explored women's role and empowerment in timber co-management. I gathered data over 12 months in Brazil, and I used mixed method research. And in the next slide, I will present research questions, methods, and findings by chapter. Okay, so first, water. So my first chapter, I wanted to know what variations in the community timber co-management emerged among the 7 timber projects, but also looking to the actors that influenced these variations. Initially, I was looking variations in variations in timber co-management in terms of 4 dimensions: biophysical, technical, environmental, social, and economic. With this list in hand, I individually interviewed 52 people. 39 were from communities and 13 from the government, NGOs, timber markets, and private forest service provider. For this last one, I will call only forest service because it's too long, this name, if that's okay to you. So I also organized 5 community meetings or group interviews for my group interviews, getting over 100 community people participating in these meetings. I complemented my data with archival research. I collect documents as timber management plan and community associations minutes. It's important to mention that before any individual or group interview, I shared this 1-page infographic about my research project to potential research participants, key informants, and organizations that could give me any support to my fieldwork. And I sent this infographic by mail to some people, but also I delivered it by hand to each person I interviewed. For the group interviews, I had a big banner of this infographic, and I used it to explain what I was doing there in the communities. So this communication strategy helped me to engage research participants and to build partnerships that end up providing diverse kinds of support. For example, transportation to the reserves. Another thing that I did to engage participants was before each group interview, I met with community leaders to plan the meeting's logistics. We designed the schedule and the meals to be offered to the participants. An approach to get local community more involved was to buy local food that they produced in their areas. For example, vegetables, fruits, eggs, fish, cassava flour. And this strategy also helped to engage community women in the meetings organization and get them participating in the community meetings. And before each group interview or committee meeting, I met with the community women to make a list of products, and together we developed this menu based on local dishes. For example, local cakes, juices, and even, I don't know the name for it is English, but mingau. It was delicious, actually. Okay, so findings related to the first chapter. And I'm sorry that this slide is a little busy. I need to work on better visual options to share this information, but I want to put all together in a table to compare my 3 cases. So here we have, these are the most important variables that I use it to do my analysis and to compare the variations among the timber projects. These variables are grouped in 3 categories: organizational, operational, and socioeconomic. I wanted to highlight that overall, Itushi and Verde presented better options for timber co-management than Chico Mendes. In Itushi and Verde, there were inter-organizational working groups to support the communities and ICMBio in managing timber. These working groups were formed by NGOs with logging expertise, local grassroots organizations, and other actors. In these 2 cases, reserve residents executed mostly or all logging activities. NGOs were crucial in providing skill training and support the communities in their choice of benefit sharing arrangement. In Chico Mendes, external actors led the timber project. It was a timber cooperative, and ICMBio was peripheral in terms of participation in decision-making. In terms of local people participating in the managing of their timber resources, Chico Mendes had only 5 people hired by this external timber cooperative. In Itushi and Verde, it was the reserve residents executing logging activities. And although the number of women timber workers were low for all cases, in Chico Mendes, the scenario was worse, with non-women directly participating in logging activities. In Chico Mendes, the logging area was discontinuous, which increased timber production cost and opened more areas for logging transportation, meaning more forest disturbance. Okay, so for the second chapter, I wanted to know from the diverse different actors their perceptions about the timber project, and if these perceptions varied among 2 comparison groups. My comparator groups were internal and external actors. Internal were the community members, and external were the government, NGOs, and the forest servers. I used the Spider Graph tool to assess the timber projects based on two topics: timber co-management arrangement and logging activities. Each topic had 7 indicators to be evaluated. I applied the tool to external actors during individual interviews, as we can see in this photo. And with internal actors, the committee members, I applied the tool during group interviews. I used a participatory approach to encourage collective analysis and critical reflection among community participants. I first asked to community participants to pair and then rank the 7 indicators of each topic. Then each pair joined another pair to form a 4-person group. This 4-person group joined another small group. Finally, one large group was formed with all group interview participants. At this last stage, I used 2 large burners here with 2 blank spider graphs to be used during the collective assessment. I invited 2 participants to moderate this final group assessment, while I observed in the back. This was a very powerful moment of my field work, I'd say, when I could observe these people evaluating, and some for the first time, the timber project in their community. And I also could observe negotiations among these people to decide what value to put in each indicator. And some indicators were sensitive, for example, leadership and conflict. Okay, findings. So findings related to internal and external actors' assessment of timber co-management arrangements. Overall, both internal and external actors from Verde, which is in the yellow line, had positive perceptions of all indicators. In these 2 figures, line is closer to 10 to the border here, means a better evaluation. In Itoshi, the green line, internal actors positively perceived integration of local timber harvest methods. These perceptions was related to the timber working group being open to integrate local knowledge into the technical timber project. Actors from Chico Mendes in red line negatively agree with mostly of the 7 indicators. And in this case, there wasn't a network of multiple actors collaborating to the timber project. Regarding logging activities, again, in Verde, both internal and external actors had similar perceptions of the 7 indicators. These actors from both sides were aligned in their perceptions, probably because of the timber working group. But we can see that conflicts were a concern in all cases. Values below 8 or closer to 0 to the center means more conflicts. This finding indicates that even strong partnerships, as I found in Itoshi and Verde, have to deal with conflict management. Another thing is that income from timber sales is an important indicator perceived by both internal and external actors. Low income can be balanced with collective benefits, as observed in Chico Mendes and Itoshi. Collective benefits in these 2 cases included roads and material goods. So chapter 3. For this chapter, I wanted to investigate how decisions were made and by whom to decide the timber projects. From the decision-making meetings, I explored if powerful actors, for example, the government, exercised power over community members, and how community members play out in these dynamics of power relations. So from my larger group of 52 individual interviews, I applied Q methodology to 13 research participants. These individuals were community leaders and people from the government, forward service, and NGOs. Basically, Q methodology is a method to study people's viewpoints, beliefs, and perceptions. Research participants have to rank and sort a series of statements using a matrix ranging from most disagree to most agree, with neutral, doubtful, or undecided in the middle. In my study, participants sorted the statements accordingly with a guide question about power relation among participants of the decision-making meetings. While I was applying this tool during the individual interviews, which some interviews took 4 hours, I could get participants moving a little bit in the room. And one particular person mentioned how interesting was the tool, saying that he used the tool to make decisions with the NGO members. So with all the matrices ranked by my research participants, I performed factor analysis to see clusters of viewpoints or perceptions. Factor analysis in Q methodology put together respondents with similar perceptions. In my case, my analysis revealed 2 groups of people with different opinions about power relations in the decision-making meetings, the meetings that decided how to manage timber resources in the extractive reserves. So here is the grid of the group 1. So this visual representation of the group shows how a hypothetical respondent with 100% loading on a factor could have ordered all the statements. And I also used conceptual features from literature review to support my analysis. Here I assigned to the statements colors, meaning interaction, participation, representation, and deliberation in decision-making. And here is the grid for the group 2. We can see that is different. And with these 2 visual tools and a bunch of tables of descriptive statistics, like 10 tables, I am not showing here to you, don't worry about that. So with all this table, I could do my analysis and interpret the data. So overall, the 2 groups perceived power relations in decision-making meetings in different ways. For instance, group 1 were neutral, doubtful, or undecided with the about or with the statement. Participants' viewpoints were considered in the decision-making. While group 2 strongly agree with this statement. On the other side, these 2 groups had similar perceptions, saying that the decision-making meetings were an open space for dialogue, wherein everybody, including the committee members, had the same rights to speak and participate in the decisions. However, these perceptions of fairness in decision-making does not mean that power asymmetries did not happen. I found that in Chico Mendes, the state government of Acre exercised power over community members through subtle manipulation using the promise of the road. On the other hand, in Ituchi and Verde, some actors, as ICMBio and NGOs, exercised power over community members, but these internal actors allied with partner organizations to act together and balance the power asymmetries. These partner organizations were present in decision-making at community level in both Itushi and Verde. Another remarkable finding is that the presence and participation of reserve residents and diverse actors were crucial in the decision-making process, either to balance the power and to share rights and benefits in the co-management arrangement. For instance, in the scale of participation and control over timber resources, Chico Mendes had passive participation and less control of decisions and timber use. And while in Itushi was the opposite, and Verde was closer to Itushi than Chico Mendes. I approach power as the socially structured capacity of actors to act and influence outcomes. In my cases, I observed that in Itushi and Verde, because of the presence of diverse actors in the decision-making meetings, particularly NGOs and grassroots organizations, community members could exercise power with to balance expressions of power over. This alliance to balance the power also resulted in decisions that included local timber harvest methods into the technical timber projects. So my last chapter was not planned. It emerged from the field. This topic, women's role in timber co-management, was critical to community women I interviewed. Then I decided to include it as a dissertation chapter. Here I talk about women's empowerment process for gender equality in timber projects. Besides individual interviews, I applied 2 focus groups with an adaptation of the community concept drawing. With this tool, research participants reflected on both community and women's empowerment. In the first focus group, I had 28 women from one timber project. These community women reflected on both what men and women are capable of in timber management. The second focus group was designed as a community exchange. I put together, with support of partner organizations, 27 community members from all my cases, Chico Mendes, Itushi, and Verde para Sempre. In this focus group, these community people reflected on community empowerment in timber co-management, and from that, I explored if research participants mentioned gender equality in their understanding of community empowerment. I also used participant observation to cross-check and to note systematically perceptions of women's role in the timber project. I found that normative values reinforce gender roles and inequalities in my cases. For instance, both men and women believed that logging activities was only for men because of their physical power. And because of this kind of beliefs, women were assigned to fill positions in the timber projects as cook or note makers during meetings. But I also found that few women were getting strategic positions in the timber projects, for example, logging coordinators and president of local timber cooperatives. Then I explored how these women were getting these kind of strategic positions. I use this conceptual framework based on 3 main references, including Beck Williams' dissertation. And so briefly about this conceptual framework, power truth is a recent concept introduced in the literature of women's empowerment. This concept refers to the power exercised without agency. It is the power that an individual or a group of individuals may win, then may lose through change in the empowerment status of others, or through relating to others. For example, if okay, I go direct to, I keep my script. I can explain this later. So in this conceptual framework, I consider power truth as a temporary empowerment, but a step for women access resources that could lead them to transformative agency and effective empowerment or outcomes. So while the work of Gallier and Farnworth, and I'm sorry if I'm not saying those names correctly, so they introduced the concept of power truth in 2019. So these authors demonstrated that women can be empowered through other people. And also they mentioned that women can lose this empowerment if the people these women are associated with lose their assets in the view or opinion of their social group. Indeed, in my study, I have observed community women empowered through male timber works. But I added that a second phenomenon can occur from power truth. So the presence of NGOs in Itoshi and Verde opened opportunities to few women participate in skill training, particularly reduced impact logging training. These few women were empowered through the community main, since these male timber works were the in facto target to receive the training. While with this temporary power, the few women active to keep and improve their status as women timber works, reaching strategic positions in the collaborative timber management. From that, they made alliances to get more women participating in the timber projects in varied job positions. So with these findings, I added that power truth was a first step for women's empowerment. Then a second step was that they exercised power two. Okay, then that power two was exercised as a transformative agency for gender equality in timber co-management. A little complex to explain right now, I'm sorry. Okay, so before finishing my presentation, I also want to highlight the role of the community exchange as a research method and a tool to explore people through social learning. I would add that besides the participation of the male timber works, which was amazing, no doubt, women timber works was present in a quite fair number. So the exchange of experiences, practices, challenges, and solutions among these community people also allowed me to get crucial information to compare my cases. For these people and for me, see the variability in terms of organizational, operational, and socio-economic settings revealed the diversity of models that we can have in community timber co-management in sustainable use protect areas. Importantly, this information is already being disseminated among national and international stakeholders. For example, here, and upcoming Brazilian or Portuguese publication, technical publication that we will provide soon to our audience. And an important piece of my research communication strategy was to disseminate my work and some of my preliminary finds to a broad audience. Here I have some examples. For example, in Chico Mendes' meeting 2018, I participated in this panel to talk about the role of women in value chains, including timber. Here with UF community in Karen's class, sharing my methods and my finds. Also during the IUFRO is this World Forestry Congress that happens each 5 years, I think, if I'm not wrong, and it was in 2019. So we had this panel about women and forestry. Also, I present other panels. I had like 6 works to present in this conference. It was a little crazy for me, but it was nice. And then also this year in March, I think, I presented these 4-minute flash talks in the Women and Gender Development Conference, and I won the 2nd place. Oops, what is that? Okay, I won the 2nd place of the jury award winners. I don't know what's happening here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So a summary. In my research, I found that ICMBio partnered with community associations to establish a large collaborative network with multiple actors, as we saw in Itoshi and Verde. These networks are important in a scenario wherein ICMBio lacks budget, staff, and technical expertise to support community timber co-management. In my cases, the collaborative multi-actor networks provided skill training to community members and supported decisions regarding collective benefit arrangements. With these networks, power asymmetries were balanced through alliances among communities and partner organizations, and local knowledge was integrated to the technical timber project. The presence of the networks also improved positive perceptions of community, positive perceptions of co-management arrangements and logging activities. Finally, these collaborative networks improved opportunity to the actors, internal and external, to be sensitive to gender roles and inequalities in community forestry. So my take-home messages are that in timber co-management, collaborative multi-actor networks can result in greater participation of local people in co-management, better choices for benefit sharing, balance of power asymmetries, and great gender equality in co-management. So I want to say thank you to all my research participants and to all communities that received me in their places, workplace, in their homes, in their communities. Also, I want to say thank you to my community members, especially Karen, my chair, my family, my friends, all TCD community, and all to these organizations, including TCD. Each one was crucial for all work I've done. Also, thank you to my research, my field assistant. And I dedicated this dissertation in memory of Marcel Silva and to all timber works that work hard to maintain our forests alive. So these are the references that I use in this presentation. You can see more in my dissertation soon. And thank you.